The importance of single-mindedness, of bare attention, is illustrated in the following anecdote. One day a man of the people said to Zen master Ikkyu, "Master, will you please write for me some maxims of the highest wisdom?" Ikkyu immediately took his brush and wrote the word attention. "Is that all?" asked the man. "Will you not add something more?" Ikkyu then wrote twice running, attention. Attention. "Well," remarked the man rather irritably, "I really don't see much depth or subtlety in what you have just written." Then Ikkyu wrote the same word 3 times running, attention. Attention. Attention.
Half angered, the man demanded, "What does that word, attention, mean anyway?" And Ikkyu answered gently, "Attention means attention." For the ordinary man or woman, whose mind is a checkerboard of crisscrossing reflections, opinions, and prejudices, bare attention is virtually impossible. One's life is thus centered not in reality itself but in one's ideas of it. By focusing the mind wholly on each object and every action, Zazen strips it of extraneous thoughts and allows us to enter into a full rapport with life.
Sitting Zazen and mobile Zazen are two functions equally dynamic and mutually reinforcing. Those who sit devotedly in Zazen every day, their minds free of discriminating thoughts, find it easier to relate themselves wholeheartedly to their daily tasks, and those who perform every act with total attention and clear awareness find it less difficult to achieve emptiness of mind during sitting periods. Zazen practice for the student begins with counting the inhalations and exhalations while seated in the motionless Zazen posture. This is the first step in the process of stilling the bodily functions, quieting discursive thoughts, and strengthening concentration. It is given as the first step because in counting the in and out breaths, in natural rhythm and without strain, the mind has a scaffolding to support it, as it were. When concentration on the breathing becomes such that awareness of the counting is clear and the count is not lost, the next step, a slightly more difficult type of Zazen, is assigned, namely, following the inhalations and exhalations of the breath with the mind's eye only, again in natural rhythm. The blissful state which flows from concentration on the breath and the value of breathing.
In terms of spiritual development are lucidly set forth by Lama Govinda, from this state of perfect mental and physical equilibrium and its resulting inner harmony grows that serenity and happiness which fills the whole body with a feeling of supreme bliss like the refreshing coolness of a spring that penetrates the entire water of a mountain lake. Breathing is the vehicle of spiritual experience, the mediator between body and mind. It is the first step towards the transformation of the body from the state of a more or less passively and unconsciously functioning physical organ into a vehicle or tool of a perfectly developed and enlightened mind, as demonstrated by the radiance and perfection of the Buddha's body. The most important result of the practice of mindfulness with regard to breathing is the realization that the process of breathing is the connecting link between conscious and subconscious, gross material and fine material, volitional and non-volitional functions, and therefore the most perfect expression of the nature of all life.
Until now we have been speaking of Zazen with no koan. Koan Zazen involves both motionless sitting, wherein the mind intensely seeks to penetrate the koan, and mobile Zazen, in which absorption in the koan continues while one is at work, at play, or even asleep. Through intense self-inquiry, for example, questioning, "What is mu?" the mind gradually becomes denuded of its delusive ideas, which in the beginning hamper its effort to become one with the koan. As these abstract notions fall away, concentration on the koan strengthens.
It may be asked, how can one concentrate devotedly on a koan and simultaneously focus the mind on work of an exacting nature? In practice, what actually happens is that once the koan grips the heart and mind, and its power to take hold is in proportion to the strength of the urge toward liberation, the inquiry goes on ceaselessly in the subconscious. While the mind is occupied with a particular task, the question fades from consciousness, surfacing naturally as soon as the action is over, not unlike a moving stream which now and again disappears underground only to reappear and resume its open course without interrupting its onward flow.
Zazen must not be confused with meditation. Meditation involves putting something into the mind, either an image or a sacred word that is visualized or a concept that is thought about or reflected on, or both. In some types of meditation the meditator envisions or contemplates or analyzes certain elementary shapes, holding them in the mind to the exclusion of everything else. Or students may contemplate in a state of adoration a Buddha or a Bodhisattva image,
hoping to evoke in themselves parallel states of mind. They may ponder such abstract qualities as loving-kindness and compassion. In Tantric Buddhist systems of meditation, mandalas containing various seed syllables of the Sanskrit alphabet, such as Om, for example, are visualized and dwelt upon in a prescribed manner. Also employed for meditational purposes are mandalas consisting of special arrangements of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and other figures.
The uniqueness of Zazen lies in this, that the mind is freed from bondage to all thought forms, visions, objects, and imaginings, however sacred or elevating, and brought to a state of absolute emptiness, from which alone it may one day perceive its own true nature, or the nature of the universe. Such initial exercises as counting or following the breath cannot, strictly speaking, be called meditation since they do not involve visualization of an object or reflection upon an idea. For the same reasons Koan Zazen cannot be called meditation. Whether one is striving to achieve unity with a koan or, for instance, intensely asking, "What is mu?" one is not meditating in the technical sense of this word.
Zazen that leads to self-realization is neither idle reverie nor vacant inaction but an intense inner struggle to gain control over the mind and then to use it, like a silent missile, to penetrate the barrier of the five senses and the discursive intellect, that is, the sixth sense. It demands energy, determination, and courage. YASUTANI-ROSHI calls it a battle between the opposing forces of delusion and bodhi. This state of mind has been vividly described in these words, said to have been uttered by the Buddha as he sat beneath the bo tree making his supreme effort, and often quoted in the Zendo during session, "Though only my skin, sinews, and bones remain and my blood and flesh dry up and wither away, yet never from this seat will I stir until I have attained full enlightenment."
The drive toward enlightenment is powered on the one hand by a painfully felt inner bondage, a frustration with life, a fear of death, or both, and on the other by the conviction that through awakening one can gain liberation. But it is in Zazen that the body, mind's force and vigor are enlarged and mobilized for the breakthrough into this new world of freedom. Energies which formerly were squandered in compulsive drives and purposeless actions are preserved and channeled into a unity through correct Zen sitting, and to the degree that the mind attains one-pointedness through Zazen it no longer disperses its force in the uncontrolled proliferation of idle thoughts. The entire nervous system is relaxed and soothed, inner tensions eliminated, and the tone of all organs strengthened. Furthermore, research involving an electrocardiograph and other devices on subjects who have been practicing Zazen for 1 to 2 years has demonstrated that Zazen brings about a release in psychophysical tension and greater body-mind stability through lowered heart rate, pulse, respiration, and metabolism. In short, by realigning the physical, mental, and psychic energies through proper breathing, concentration, and sitting, Zazen establishes a new body-mind equilibrium with its center of gravity in the vital Hara.
Hara literally denotes the stomach and abdomen and the functions of digestion, absorption, and elimination connected with them. But it has parallel psychic and spiritual significance. According to Hindu and Buddhist yogic systems, there are a number of psychic centers in the body through which vital cosmic force or energy flows. Of the 2 such centers embraced within the Hara, one is associated with the solar plexus, whose system of nerves governs the digestive processes and organs of elimination. The other center is associated with the tanden, a point of concentration, roughly the width of 2 fingers, located below the navel in the center of the lower belly. Hara is thus a wellspring of vital psychic energies. Roshi, one of the most celebrated Zen masters of his day, in urging his disciples to concentrate their minds, that is, the attention, the summation point of the total being, in their tanden, would declare, "You must realize, that is, make real, that the center of the universe is the pit of your belly."
To facilitate a direct experience of this fundamental truth, the Zen novice is instructed to focus the mind constantly at the tanden and to radiate all mental and bodily activities from that point. With the body-mind's equilibrium thus centered in the Hara region, gradually a seat of consciousness, a focus of vital energy, is established there which influences the entire organism. That consciousness is by no means confined to the brain is shown by Lama Govinda, who writes, While, according to Western conceptions, the brain is the exclusive seat of consciousness, yogic experience shows that our brain consciousness is only one among a number of possible forms of consciousness, and that these, according to their function and nature, can be localized or centered in various organs of the body. These organs, which collect, transform, and distribute the forces flowing through them, are called chakras, or centers of force. From them radiate secondary streams of psychic force, comparable to the spokes of a wheel, the ribs of an umbrella, or the petals of a lotus. In other words, these chakras are the points in which psychic forces and bodily functions merge into each other or penetrate each other. They are the focal points in which cosmic and psychic energies crystallize into bodily qualities, and in which bodily qualities are dissolved or transmuted again into psychic forces.
Settling the body's center of gravity below the navel, that is, establishing a center of consciousness in the tanden, automatically relaxes tensions arising from the habitual hunching of the shoulders, straining of the neck, and squeezing in of the stomach. As this rigidity disappears, an enhanced vitality and new sense of freedom are experienced throughout the body and mind, which are felt more and more to be a unity.
Zazen has clearly demonstrated that with the mind's eye centered in the tanden, the proliferation of random ideas is diminished and the attainment of one-pointedness accelerated, since a plethora of blood from the head is drawn down to the abdomen, cooling the brain and soothing the autonomic nervous system. This in turn leads to a greater degree of mental and emotional stability. Thus, one who functions from the Hara is not easily disturbed. Such a person is, moreover, able to act quickly and decisively in an emergency because his or her mind, settled in the Hara, does not waver.
With the mind settled in the Hara, narrow and egocentric thinking is superseded by a broadness of outlook and a magnanimity of spirit. This is because thinking from the vital Hara center, being free of mediation by the limited discursive intellect, is spontaneous and all-embracing. Perception from the Hara tends toward integration and unity rather than division and fragmentation. In short, it is thinking which sees things steadily in whole. The figure of the Buddha seated on his lotus throne, serene, stable, all-knowing and all-encompassing, radiating boundless light and compassion, is the foremost example of Hara expressed through perfect enlightenment. Rodin's thinker, on the other hand, a solitary figure, lost in thought and contorted in body, remote and isolated from his self, typifies the opposite state.
The ability to think and act from the Hara is, like Jiriki, only indirectly related to Satori and not synonymous with it. Satori is a turning about of the mind, a psychological experience conferring inner knowledge, while Hara is no more than what has been indicated. Masters of the traditional Japanese arts are all accomplished in thinking and acting from the Hara. They would not merit the title master if they were not, but few if any achieve Satori without Zen training. Why not? Because their cultivation of Hara is essentially for the perfection of their art and not Satori, the attainment of which presupposes, as Yasutani-Roshi points out in his introductory lectures, faith in the reality of the Buddha's enlightenment and in their own immaculate Buddha nature.
With body and mind consolidated, focused, and energized, the emotions respond with increased sensitivity and purity, and volition exerts itself with greater strength of purpose. No longer are we dominated by intellect at the expense of feeling, nor driven by the emotions unchecked by reason or will. Eventually Zazen leads to a transformation of personality and character. Dryness, rigidity, and self-centeredness give way to flowing warmth, resiliency, and compassion, while self-indulgence and fear are transmuted into self-mastery and courage.
Because they know from centuries of experience this transforming power of Zazen, the Japanese masters have always placed greater reliance on Zazen to foster moral conduct in their disciples than upon the mere imposition of the precepts from the outside. Actually, the precepts and Zazen, both grounded in the identical Buddha nature, which is the source of all purity and goodness, are mutually reinforcing. The strongest resolution to keep the precepts will at best be only sporadically successful if it is not supported by Zazen, and Zazen divorced from the disciplined life which grows out of a sincere effort to observe the precepts cannot but be weak and uncertain. In any case, contrary to what is believed in some sects of Buddhism, the precepts are not just simple moral commandments which anyone can easily understand and keep if they have the will to.
In reality, their relative absolute sense cannot be grasped as living truth except after long and dedicated Zazen.
This is why Zen students are normally not given the book of problems called Jujukinkai, which deals with the 10 cardinal precepts from the standpoints of the Hinayana doctrines, the Mahayana, the Buddha, nature itself, Bodhidharma's view, and Dogen's view, until the very end of their training, when their enlightenment and Zazen power have deepened and matured. Indeed, the Japanese and Chinese masters stress that only upon full enlightenment can one truly know good from evil and, through the power of Zazen, translate this wisdom into one's everyday actions.
That a strong sense of social and personal responsibility is inherent in the spiritual freedom of the deeply realized person was made clear by Yasutani-Roshi in response to a question addressed to him in America by a group of university students. If, as we have been led to believe, Satori makes clear that past and future are unreal, is one not free to live as one likes in the present, unconcerned about the past and indifferent to the future? In reply, Yasutani-Roshi made a dot on the blackboard and explained that this isolated dot represented their conception of here and now. To show the incompleteness of this view, he placed another dot on the board, through which he drew a horizontal line and a vertical one. He then explained that the horizontal line stood for time from the beginningless past to the endless future and the vertical for limitless space. The present moment of the enlightened individual, who stands at this intersection, embraces all these dimensions of time and space, he emphasized.
Accordingly, the Satori realization that one is the focus of past and future time and space unavoidably carries with it a sense of fellowship and responsibility to one's family and society as a whole, alike to those who came before and those who will follow one. The freedom of the liberated Zen person is a far cry from the freedom of the Zen libertine, driven as the latter is by uncontrolled selfish desires. The inseparable bond with all human beings that the truly enlightened feels precludes any such self-centered behavior.
As well as enriching personality and strengthening character, Zazen illuminates the three characteristics of existence which the Buddha proclaimed. First, that all things, in which are included our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, are impermanent, arising when particular causes and conditions bring them into being and passing away with the emergence of new causal factors. Second, that life is pain. And third, that ultimately nothing is self-subsistent, that all forms in their essential nature are empty, that is, mutually dependent patterns of energy in flux, yet at the same time are possessed of a provisional or limited reality in time and space, in much the same way that the actions in a movie film have a reality in terms of the film but are otherwise insubstantial and unreal.